How can meditation transform your life? Is it something important? Is it something we need to know about? Can talking about it make a difference? Today we're going to discuss all of that and more with Tom Cronin on the show. Stay tuned.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
G'day, and welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. Always a blessing to be with you all. And we are streaming, as you know, on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, syndicated across America and Canada on 107.7 and 105.3 FM. And I've got the wonderful Aussie meditation teacher, Tom Cronin, on the show. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me along today. Looking forward to our discussion.
I've known Tom for probably about 10 years. I remember, I think I met you at a Shine event in Sydney at the
That's right.
Australian art, the art, what do you call it, where they show art
gallery.
Thank you, art gallery. Yeah, there was an event there, but I'd heard about you before I did that. And I remember seeing you, and I thought I loved how classy you were, Tom. I loved the way you presented meditation in such a sort of with it now modern approach, and not sort of, it didn't look too woo-woo or out there, or it sort of reached a more mainstream mind. It was something that I thought 10 years ago, and I thought, I have to meet this man. He's doing good work.
Here we are. Amazing.
And here we are. And you have an extraordinary story. I actually first spoke to Tom on the show back in 2016. Isn't that amazing? Let me tell you a little bit about Tom's story. So Tom Cronin spent 26 years in the finance market as one of Australia's leading bond and swap brokers, often referred to as the Australian Gordon Gekko of the stockbroking industry. But he discovered meditation in the early stages of his career when the anxiety and chaos he was experiencing had hit a crisis point, and it completely transformed his world both personally and professionally. Tom is the founder of the Stillness Project, now a global movement to inspire 1 billion people to sit in daily stillness. And he's passionate about reducing stress and chaos in people's lives. His ongoing work in the transformational leadership and coaching space, he works in corporate training and has seen him working with some of the top companies in the world like Amazon, Oracle, Harvard Business School, Qantas, and he's spoken at places like Wonderlust and Autumn Fest in Mexico. Did you know that there was an Autumn Fest in Mexico? And many more. Tom has spoken on stage and conferences, I think I said that, like the Andrew Summit. And he has 6 books published and a meditation app, and is the producer of the hit film The Portal, which is also a book. If you want to know more about Tom, you can find him at tomcronin.com. But for this new audience who doesn't know your story, let's go into why you found meditation and how it seduced you out of the fast-paced world of stockbroking. What was going on?
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, meditation played an integral role in helping me manage through some very stressful times that I was going through at the time, many years back. And at that point in time, I was riddled with anxiety, panic attacks, addictions, depression, as a result of partly bad lifestyle choices, some of the things that I was doing in my life, but also just the nature of my work and life itself. As a broker, it was very hectic, very late nights, lots of partying, drinking, obviously drugs were involved. And that led to some very extreme stress responses in my body, my nervous system, which was showing up as symptoms with depression, anxiety, panic attacks, insomnia, and eventually agoraphobia. So at that point in time, I was seeing doctors and psychiatrists and put on pharmaceutical drugs to try and alleviate the problem. But it was then that I found meditation. It was almost like divinely organized by the universe that I would come across this wonderful, powerful technique. And when I learned meditation out of necessity almost, because I just really didn't feel like the psychiatry and the psychology and the drugs and the doctors was the pathway for me, not to discredit it for anyone else, but for me, I didn't really feel that was the way I wanted to go with my next steps. And when I found meditation, I found that those anomalies just simply went away after days and weeks. It was quite phenomenal. The anxiety, the depression, even a lot of the addictions started to just melt away. And that led me down a path of exploration. And what is this stuff? This is wild. This is unbelievable what this was doing for me. And I really started to think, wow, everyone should be doing this. This was just a no-brainer. And more research that I did and realized that this has actually stood the test of time. This is 5,000 years old. Why is this lasting so long? There was something very profound and effective. And that's when obviously I started to get more involved in bringing this, not just using it, but eventually down the track teaching it as well.
Yeah. And I know that you said that you've wanted to inspire 1 billion people to daily stillness. I think you will. I think you'll manage it.
We're working on it. Shows like this can help.
Shows like this can help, definitely. Well, and the movie and the book, I mean, inspiring 1 billion people is not so much about you talking to them one-on-one, but putting that work out in through media, through podcast shows and in movies and in books, I think it's easily done. It's something that is so important. My mother died of cancer when I was 16. And so the questions in me was like, why do people get sick and how do you heal? They were inspired in me watching my mum go through her illness journey and then eventually dying. She was only 50 at the time that she died. And so I looked into it a lot and studied naturopathy and all sorts of things. But I remember when I found people like Petria King and what's the guy in Melbourne, I've forgotten his name, that had his leg amputated because he had cancer. I'd find so many people that had cured themselves from cancer through their meditation practice. They went to doctors, they went to healers, they went everywhere. But when they sat in daily meditation, that was the cure to all that was ailing them, which is something that happened to you because you were, I think the doctors had said to you, you have to be on this slew of pills, don't you, for the rest of your life. We don't know what's wrong with you, we can't fix you, but this will help. And you decided that, no, I'm not up for that.
Well, if you think about the analogy of a broken leg, and what we do with a broken leg is we put a cast around it. Now, the cast actually is not fixing the leg at all. The cast is creating stillness. It's creating an environment that now is conducive to healing. And if we take that same principle and apply it to our own personal ecosystem or biological system, that if we create enough stillness, that allows a healing intelligence within the body to do what it does best. Now, we know that the body can fix the leg, and the doctors play no role whatsoever in fixing that broken leg. Absolutely zero. There's nothing a doctor can do to fix that broken leg other than put a cast around it. The cast stabilizes and creates stillness for the leg. And then the leg goes about, or the body goes about, fixing the damage. And we find this time and time again, and that's exactly what happened to me. My anomalies weren't something a doctor could fix. They could medicate to help relieve some of the discomfort that I was experiencing. That's what more often than not pharmaceuticals are doing, is relieving the pressure of anxiety or the depression. But when I created stillness through the meditation, and I got my body out of the sympathetic nervous system, which is a system that is designed to produce high levels of cortisol and adrenaline and norepinephrine into the bloodstream, and reduce the amount of oxytocin, serotonin, melatonin, biochemicals for sleep, happiness, and love. When you're trying to medicate someone and they're still in that state, it's almost like pushing shit uphill. But if we can actually get them out of the sympathetic, put them into the peace response, the parasympathetic, and stillness does that. Stillness will activate the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's where all the healing starts to take place. And we just need to get more humans out of the sympathetic nervous system state. It's not going to be the cure-all. Of course, there's a lot of other things that we do need medicine and doctors to help the healing process of humans. But certainly in a lot of cases that I've found, particularly with my clients time and time again, when we create the environment of stillness, the biology of the body starts to actually activate a healing response, and we start to see things change.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't stress the importance of meditation so much, though. As a young girl, all those questions led me into deeper and deeper paths of like, what's life all about? And I wanted to develop my own healing abilities and develop my psychic ability. And meditation was the answer to all of those, Tom, like falling into meditation. I saw something really interesting. Annika posted it. Annika is my daughter, who posted it on her Instagram recently, on her stories of you teaching children at high school how to meditate, and most of them fell asleep. And you said something really interesting about that. Do you want to talk about that? Like, why do people fall asleep when they try to meditate?
Again, it comes back to the healing process in the body. What the body does when we create enough of a conducive environment for healing, that is meditation being one of them, the body scans and it's looking for anomalies. It's constantly looking at how to repair and fix problems. It's quite amazing. It does it down to a very cellular level. And if I accidentally cut my arm on a rose bush, put a bandage on the arm, the bandage is not healing the arm. The body's going, okay, over on the right arm, we have a problem. Alert, alert. We need to go over there and change the red or white blood cell count. We need to grow scab cells. We need to grow skin cells. We need to coagulate the blood. All these things are happening on autopilot because the body knows what to do. And one of the anomalies that the body identifies predominantly in the youth of the world and in a lot of my students is that we have immense levels of fatigue in our body. Now, we don't allow ourselves to feel tired because we're so addicted to our phones, we're addicted to coffee, or addicted to sugar, or addicted to alcohol, addicted to uppers and downers, because we're just not allowing ourselves to feel. And feeling is a guidance system. Now, if we're tired, we want to feel tired. We should be feeling tired if we're tired. And so we will then take action, which would be sleep. But what's happening, particularly with the youth, they don't have the consciousness and the sovereignty over their phones to choose to feel tired and then act on that fatigue by going to bed early. It's just a weird phenomenon, interesting phenomenon, that the youth of the world currently would much rather be up scrolling through TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, talking with their friends in chat rooms, than gaming particularly is very, very addictive and distracting for people's levels of intuition for their body. But when we meditate, it's really interesting because meditation stops all the noise and the distraction. And then the body goes, okay, well, look what we've got here. We have a very tired 16-year-old. And the only way we can fix that anomaly is actually by inducing sleep. So quite often meditators will fall asleep, which is actually a really healthy reaction and effect of meditating.
Yeah. You know what else I thought about when I saw that? I thought, wow, that's really interesting, because that's what a lot of people complain about when they start to meditate. One thing is that the monkey mind drives them crazy and they can't sit for long because they're doing shopping lists and what do they need to do, and I forgot about that, and a conversation I had yesterday, and that person pissed me off and I'm really angry about, the monkey mind just takes over. Or when the monkey mind stills, they're out like a light and they tell me, I can't meditate because I keep falling asleep. And when I saw you posting that about the kids, I started thinking about it. And again, remember, I started meditating for health reasons, but to expand my psychic ability. It's like this different brainwave states that we go into when we're operating in that beta brainwave all the time, that thinking, questioning, acting, like judging, criticizing. When we drop into alpha and theta, these are the brainwaves that we have during sleep. And so we naturally fall into sleep, right? As soon as we start to drop out of those brainwaves into a theta brainwave, or a theta, we say in Australia, theta they say in America, and which can be the brainwave of REM sleep, rapid eye movement. And we were talking about Charlie Goldsmith before, the healer. And if anyone knows who Charlie Goldsmith is, he had a show on television, on American television, The Healer. And when he does his healings, his eyes flicker. Have you seen him do that? Like his eyes flicker? So that's called REM, rapid eye movement. And that's the brainwave we are when we're in that sleep state. So I thought about staying awake and conscious and being in those brainwaves is what meditation gives us. It gives us that ability to stay awake, conscious, and allow our brain waves to move into a more expanded awareness. And yeah, what do you think about that, Tom?
Look, definitely there's many, many aspects to meditation and many, many effects of meditation. Some of them are that we might fall asleep, because before we get into those expanded mindsets, we might find that fatigue is the primary issue that needs to be addressed. Yeah. And, we look at, almost coming back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like, in meditation, the body and the nervous system have to address the core fundamental issues. It's like, we can go into cosmic consciousness, but I think we actually need sleep first. And sometimes it'll address the more primary and pressing issues. Sometimes for meditators where fatigue is not an issue, then transcendence might be something that will be what happens in meditation, which is getting into those higher states of consciousness, those delta brainwave frequencies. So really, the way we approach this as a teacher for our students is that there's no right or wrong. There's no what you should or shouldn't be experiencing. We always take it as it comes, and as it comes, we take it. Some meditations, you'll have extremely busy meditations, which is a lot of shifting and changing happening. Just think of it like a renovation on a house. There's a lot of activity. A lot of activity and change in the body can indicate and be indicative of a very busy mind. So we see thoughts in meditation as part of the process of change happening physiologically and restructuring. And sometimes that can be what's happening in the meditation. Sometimes if there's no real requirement for change in the body's in a good place, then we might find meditators drop into a very expansive and very cosmic sort of conscious state of mind, which is the field of mind rather than the internal mind. So yeah, again, there's no right or wrong. We just sort of explore whatever happens and unfolds in that meditation experience.
So Tom, you've been doing this for many years. What has been happening to your consciousness over this years of meditating? What have you found that you've started to experience? Because I know that especially in the younger generation, a lot of people are doing ayahuasca and mushrooms and all sorts of things to tap into a more cosmic consciousness, as you say, to expand their awareness. Have you ever done that? I've never done it.
I haven't done plant medicine. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
It hasn't been my path. By the time it sort of got to my field.
Oh, I think you froze for a second. Hopefully you'll come back. He's frozen. Come back, Tom, come back. Oops. Live radio. You get when you're on live radio. Well, hopefully Tom can hear me and he'll come back. Yeah, I had Samuel Chong on the show last week, and not that I'm not a proponent for plant medicine, because I know so many people that do it and get incredible benefits out of it. But he said something really interesting I had never heard before. He said that all sorts of form of psychedelics actually are not good for your astral body. And I thought, wow, that's something I've never heard before. And so there we go. We've lost Tom. Hopefully he'll come back on. He's in a hotel at the moment in Queensland. He's been running courses up there. So I thought to myself, well, if you can get the same experience from meditation as you can from plant medicine, maybe practice that rather than taking some substance to change your consciousness. When I ask, as I say, I've never done it. And when I ask people, tell me about your experience on plant medicine or, ayahuasca or something like that, they tell me about all this cosmic stuff that they experience. They're talking to dead people. They're out of their bodies. They're, flying through the universe. They're seeing all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, welcome to my world. That's exactly what I experience when I go into meditation. So let me hear from the audience who are tuning in. We've got a few of you tuning in. What has been your experience with meditation? What have you found? Or have you found meditation too hard? Maybe the monkey mind has driven you crazy. One of the first forays into meditation that I did, here he is, he's back. One of the first forays into meditation that I did, okay, live radio and you drop off. saying that great conversation, Susan says, when I began TM, I kept falling asleep. Not long after, I met and worked with a transpersonal spiritual hypnotherapist who helped me shift my consciousness. Oh, thanks for that, Susan. And could listen to things like, what is she saying here? Could listen to things like immerse into classical music or considered as meditation. Yeah. And Susan says here, today I can connect easily with my higher self and heal all sorts of things. Ah, beautiful. Yeah, me too, Susan. I was just going to say one of the first experience I had with immersive meditation was I was 26. I was engaged to my daughter's father, and he and his family were chuffing off to Czechoslovakia because they just opened the gates from being a communist rule, and so they all chuffed off to Czechoslovakia to go back to the homeland because his mother was from there. And I thought I'd take myself up to Vipassana, which is a 10-day meditation retreat the Buddhists put on. And yeah, for the first 3 or 4 days, I was in pure torture. I was in pure hell as my monkey mind was screaming. I was in pain. I was bored. I was tired. It's like everything was screaming at me for about 3 days. But I'd had a friend who had done it beforehand, and he'd regaled his experiences. And he said that after the 3rd day, he was determined to leave, but they convinced him to stay. And he stayed, and he said it was the best thing he ever did. So after the 3 days of listening to my body screaming and my mind screaming, I realized that this was what was going on. And yeah, and I fell into that blissful peace of no time, just saw past lives. It was amazing. It was amazing. Welcome back, Tom.
It's great to be here. Sorry, I'm in a hotel, and the internet has been hit and miss since Friday night with the cyber sort of network thing, which affected airports and hotels around the world. So, but I'm back now, which is good. So if I drop out again, I'll just come back in once it picks up.
Okay, come back in. So the question was, you've been doing this for years now. What has been happening in with your consciousness? What have you noticed?
Yeah. So firstly, plant medicine wasn't my path. It just was something that I'd already established quite enough through my meditation. But what I tend to find with a lot of seekers is the barrier to experiencing the bliss of being and pure consciousness is the seeker that's seeking. And there's a lot of seeking going on in our world outside of the spiritual community, which is seeking fulfillment through getting wasted, scrolling through TikTok, going to the horse races and hoping your horse wins, and all the things in life that we're trying to find pleasure from. But we also find that that's happening as well in the spiritual community, which is a lot of seeking of experiences. I'm looking for a high. I'm looking for this experience. I'm looking for this. I'm looking for that. When in actual fact, what I've found over the long term in my journey on this path is that it's the seeker that's the problem. And the meditation over time, what's happening is that the seeker is just dropping away. And what remains is simply just quietness. It's not very dynamic at all. It's just peaceful. And you mentioned the word peace. And peace is the absence of all the other stuff. And peace prevails when we find that there's nothing left. And for me, a lot of people think after years and years of meditating that you're going to have some incredible, mind-blowing, cosmic sort of experience. And really all that's left is just quietness and what we call in Buddhism emptiness. It's just a nice, peaceful, empty vessel that most of the time there's really not much going on other than just a quiet peacefulness. It's just very serene and very liberating. And it's very blissful and loving.
Profound. Yeah, so I don't know how to pronounce your name. He said this is a question that I put up before. Could listening to, is it Kassam? Is that how I say your name? Putting thumbs up or thumbs down. Could listening to things like and immerse yourself into classical music be considered as meditation?
It's a great question. Kassam, thank you for that question. It's a really good one. And people will say to me all the time, oh, I don't, I walk as my meditation. I dance as my meditation. I swim laps in the pool as my meditation. I listen to classical music as my meditation. We've got to remember the duality of what's happening there. It's the I that's listening to the music. it's the eye that's enjoying the swimming. It's the eye that's enjoying the dancing. So we've got two things, which is the dancing, and then the subject, which is the eye, which is enjoying the dancing. The eye, which is listening to the music. And it's the duality, which is where the source of suffering is. Because if you're listening to music to make you feel good, you're in the world of circumstance, of relativity, which means that you're exposing yourself to bad things also making you feel bad. If good things can make you feel good, then bad things can make you feel bad. And you're in this flux of good and bad things making you feel good and bad. And you've lost sovereignty because you are still conditioning yourself to be at the mercy of elements and circumstances and situations. I can only feel peace if I'm swimming. I can only feel peace if I'm dancing. I can only feel peace if I'm listening to music. We actually want to liberate ourselves from that I and get into the true peace, which is non-dependence on the outside of the world and freedom from the binding effect. We call this moksha, M-O-K-S-H-A. Moksha is freedom from the binding effects of life. Now, some people would say, well, that sounds really boring, but what we're actually looking for through all of those devices that we're using, whether it's swimming, dancing, or listening to music, is to feel elevated and fulfilled. And if we look at the love frequency chart, and if you just Google love frequency chart into Google, you'll see the chart that shows the measurable, quantifiable hertz or vibrations. And you'll see shame, guilt, anger, and sadness down the bottom, and you'll see peace and enlightenment at the top. And peace is actually one of the highest vibrations, and peace comes from liberation, from the influences of life. So yes, we can listen to music and make us feel good and relaxed. We can swim and make us feel good and relaxed, but we're swimming, we're dancing, and we're listening to music. We really want to call them for what they are. You can definitely have a nice experience while we're doing that, but I'm not necessarily sure we'd call it a meditation itself.
Wow. Well, that's the best explanation I've ever heard of that, because I hear that so often. Walking is my meditation. Swimming is, dancing is my form of meditation. That's amazing, Tom. That's wonderful. Yeah. So if you're reliant on something that you're doing to put you into a place, then unless you're walking or swimming or dancing, yeah, you can't find that peace in your life in other ways. But what about meditating? So people who are meditating are sitting still. I mean, to find that peace, you know, and you practice meditation when you're sitting still, can you find that peace when you're not sitting still and you're driving the car or at work or having a conversation with your family or friends? If you're not sitting still, is it the same? Does it work the same way?
It's a really good question. You asked some good questions here. So does the audience. So the purpose of meditating is actually not necessarily just to find peace in meditation. The purpose of regular, consistent meditation, and I suggest twice a day, and we'll get to, and if I forget, maybe Karen prompt me to share this, but there are different styles of meditation. So the meditation that I use and teach is one where we transcend. Transcending means go beyond the ego, the identity, the I. And that's a really important part of the meditation experience, as opposed to visualizations and guided meditations and chakra clearing and gratitude meditations, which are all really good and beneficial and play an integral part in enhancing life. But we do, however, want to actually transcend and get into what we call turiya, the fourth state of consciousness, where there's no I, there's just awareness itself. And when we do this regularly, morning and evening, morning and evening, morning and evening, what happens over time is the stabilization of that state of being in the eyes open, interactive state of doing. So we don't want meditation to be just a 20-minute thing once every few days. We want it to become a meditative experience of life, where being is being incorporated and integrated into the doing. So I have that background awareness of the transcendent or the non-subjective observer being in action. We call this sakshi kutastha, the silent witness. So that we've now stabilized and become more aware of the silent witness that is witnessing and watching life without being charged or activated by life. And that allows us to be in almost like a meditative state whilst we're driving our car, whilst we're having dinner with our family, whilst we're running late for a plane. And this is a long-term benefit that comes from meditation.
Yeah, I'm thinking whilst we're running late for a plane, when the internet goes down and nothing's working.
That's right. It's a little bit harder to stabilize in certain situations, for sure.
Whether you're live on radio or you're at an airport and someone puts a code in and it crashes half the world.
Yeah, that's right. I have been known to not be in meditation in some of those moments.
But really, that's what it's all about. You want to find that peace in your life in those moments, or at least that when you move out of that peace, know how to get back into it. Know how, because when you're in that chaos, sort of like, everything's going wrong, and we tend to, like, momentum of thought attracts thought, so we go into everything's going wrong, and you can go into nothing works out for me, why does this always happen to me, this terrible stuff's the world's crazy and everything's effed, and we can sort of start on a momentum of thought. And how do you stop that momentum and, like, come back into peace? Oh gosh, the internet's doing great things. Got any clues for us when we're in that crazy thinking, when we're not sitting to meditate, how to turn your thoughts around and come back into peace?
Yeah, there's a really great practice. In Sanskrit, the practice is neti neti, N-E-T-I, N-E-T-I. Neti neti means not this, not that. And so when we find ourselves doing a lot of I this and me this and really getting challenged by the circumstances of life, neti neti is, who is it that is being challenged? And the neti neti is, I'm not the thoughts and I'm not the feelings. I'm conscious awareness itself. And it's a very advanced mindful practice. So we have meditation, which is what we do when we close our eyes and we go into deep stillness and quietness, or whatever else is being experienced in the meditation. Maybe we're falling asleep, or maybe we're having lots of thoughts, or maybe we're having jolts and spasms. Whatever the meditation experience is, that's what the meditation is. But outside of the meditation, we want to integrate a consistent, diligent process of being observant and mindful of who is it that's witnessing life? Who is it that's observing life? Is it consciousness itself, or is it the personality with all its desires and phobias and fears and regrets? So when we're being disturbed, if there's enough conscious awareness that's been developed through the meditation practice, let consciousness start to observe the I and go, well, look at you getting in your frenzy. Look at you getting in your worry. Who is it that is really experiencing this? Is it the identity, the ego, the subjective viewer, or is it just simply conscious awareness itself? Because fundamentally, there's just conscious awareness itself. And then we've got this sort of egoic construct that is imposed into that situation and scenario that is in relativity, subject-object phenomenon that's being affected and charged by the circumstances. And what we have in our world at the moment is an extremely me-centered world that is very sensitive, because the me is very sensitive, the I is very sensitive. And my inspiration, partly through my own pain and suffering, which was the me that was driving that pain and suffering, and the need to sort of find a freedom and a way through that, which is the same path that Buddha took when he was grappling with his own pain and suffering and looking for salvation, looking for freedom from that pain and suffering. And we've had many masters and monks and sages throughout history realize that there is a way to liberate ourselves from the pain and suffering. And the pathway is to actually liberate themselves from the I, not to make the world better so that they can feel happier, but to actually find freedom from the effect of life. And the thing that when we're in those moments is to identify the discomfort as a mechanism that the universe has to remind us that we're missing the key ingredient to life, which is that we're not actually the charged ego that's having the discomfort. We're actually being reminded that we're not that at all. We're actually conscious awareness itself, which is infinite love, infinite being. The divine does not get anxious. The divine does not get hasty. The divine does not have sadness or suffering.
Yeah, the divine. Well, I suppose you could call it the divine stillness, or you could call it your higher self, or your soul. People have called it your soul, your higher self. Prema Chodron said something beautiful. You know who Prema Chodron is? She's I
Mhm.
think she's a British woman who became a Buddhist nun,
That's right.
and she does talks all over the world. She said, what we try and come up with when the world is not treating us well, it's like walking with bare feet on glass. It's like you feel like the world is like glass and you're walking on bare feet. Let me cover the world in leather so that I don't have to walk on the glass and hurt my feet. And she said that meditation's like, well, rather than covering the world with leather, just cover your feet. Like put on shoes. Put on shoes and you don't have to feel the glass of the world. Yeah, to identify with the higher self that doesn't get anxious or stressed or isn't identified as the I or the me. And Cawthon says here, I've heard that ego consciousness is an illusion, so you cannot try to strive to get peace or enlightenment because the person ego is already non-existent. Any thoughts, please?
It's actually spot on. The trying is the problem, and we're all trying to get somewhere. And all we have to do, which is not an easy thing to do, because the thing that we love the most is the thing that's trying, which is the identity, the ego. But the peace prevails when the thing that's trying drops away. And and just to put a little caveat here, I still have my ego, and I still have trying at times, and I still have my own discomfort at times. So just to let everyone know that I'm not fully in that enlightened state, but it's an awareness and an experience that becomes more and more prevalent as time goes on. But I was studying with a Zen master once, and after many years of meditating and doing the work and being a teacher even, I was still experiencing trepidation and fear. It was very primal. It was in my body. And I said to him, I'd sign up to a mentoring program with him. And he said, so what's this about? What are you here for? And I said, I still get fear and anxiety, and I want to get rid of the fear and anxiety. And he shook his head and he goes, no, we're not going to remove the fear and anxiety. We're going to remove the entity that the fear and anxiety exists within, which is your ego construct. And that was a really big shift for me. And that might challenge some people because they might think that as spiritual bypassing. And this is just part of a process. And I totally empathize and understand that perspective, because in some respects it is a little bit true. But we do need to do the somatic work, because the body is where a lot of these things are still stored within. So we definitely don't want to discard the importance of the physiology and the energy in the physiology. If there's trauma and sadness and grief or fear and anxiety, then that can stay in the physiology, even though you can have very vast awareness in your consciousness and your mind. But the physical body still needs the work to purify that. And there's many different ways we can do and go about making sure that body gets upgraded to be aligned to the intellect. And so one thing I wanted to touch on is that a lot of people are coming in to these shows wanting to explore UFOs and past lives and future lives and ascended beings and spirits and all that sort of stuff. But we can get very obsessed about everything else but our own well-being. And I think we really have to address ground zero, which is, how are you feeling? And have you mastered the art of feeling light and blissful and joyful and vital? This is a key component to what it is to be human. And I noticed that some spiritual practices can disregard the well-being of the body. And we need to make sure that this physical form that we're currently in, the spacesuit that we're using for planet Earth, is congruent with our state of consciousness. So making sure that we're eating well, drinking well, exercising, doing weights, breath work, yoga, stretching, all those things that make sure that we've got the whole system is fully aligned and coherent.
Yeah, well said, Tom. Well said. Thank you for that. Yeah, the ego construct. A lot of spiritual teachers talk about, I remember when I was running the Academy of Light in my 30s, the people that started that, the Academy of Light was a group that we used to have every Monday, showcasing a teacher and doing meditation, group meditation. She used to talk about lying your feet at the guru, like getting rid of your ego. No, lying your feet at the guru, lying your ego at the foot of the guru, getting rid of your ego. But I actually love my ego. I think she's hilarious. I love her. I watch her like a sitcom. Like, I really love her. I don't want her to go away. I mean, yes, she worries, she stresses, but I know that that's not me. That's just that character I'm playing in this lifetime. And I can get out of it as quickly as I'm in it. Like, something I do with healing, I understand that when I'm not resisting something, I have no pain. It was an experience I was given when I had a terrible accident and I had no pain. And it happened right after I found out a friend of mine had died. So I was kind of in shock. And I said to my guides, what was that experience all about? I had no pain. They said, where there is no resistance, there is no pain. So last winter, I fell down the stairs outside because we'd had a lot of rain and they were very moldy. And I kept thinking in my head over and over again, someone's going to fall down those stairs. We need to get rid of that mold. And that someone was me. And when I did it, I was in huge resistance because I'm like, I told you so. I knew someone was going to fall down that stairs. And so I was in huge resistance. And as I was in that resistance, I was in pain. And so I just fell into meditation and stopped the mental, thing going on in my head about beating up on myself for knowing that, the stairs were dangerous and then being the fool that fell down them. And as soon as I stopped the resistance, the pain subsided. So I don't know, you can love her, him, you can love the ego that stresses, that worries, that criticizes. Because I don't know if physical life is all about completely getting rid of that aspect of, I think it's a big part of being human. What do you think, Tom? A lot of gurus say, like, get rid of it completely and you're enlightened.
Yeah, look, it's a great area of discussion. And I think traditionally those that were egoless, let's just say they're in unity consciousness, so fully enlightened, very rarely, if ever at all, did they coexist in the householder lifestyle. They lived in ashrams, caves, monasteries, where they could just simply sit in being and be in that state of profound bliss. But they weren't dealing with changing nappies on kids and organizing the electricity bill and getting the groceries and having to coexist with a partner in their house that's either in a masculine, feminine dynamic that's quite conflicting at times. And so we don't know whether it's possible for a full egoless, unity conscious, enlightened experience can coexist as a family member or in a householder. I think we're in the early stages where the integration of these advanced states of consciousness into the householder life is only just starting. We've only 30, 40 years in where these spiritual traditions have traversed out of the jungles and ashrams and monasteries into people turning up to work as a lawyer or a real estate agent or as a podcaster. So it's a whole new frontier and we're trying to navigate that. There's many different approaches to it, many different teachings. There's no right or wrong. Some say, let's learn to be friends with our ego, which is what you're saying there. And I think there's a lot of merit in that. I don't know if it's possible. I'm certainly not egolessness. I definitely have identify and aware that there's definitely some ego that still exists in the container, in the vessel. I do get glimpses and moments of profound emptiness as well, which is extremely blissful and liberating. And I really, really love being in those experiences of such clarity and purity and refinement. But I also identify and recognize that there's some traces of the ego, which is learning to be friends with it, I think is a really important pathway forward along the way if we don't want to go all the way into egolessness. So, I think it's one of those things we just take as it comes and we don't get too serious about it all.
I think I remember somebody saying the wolves are howling in your head when, you're in your stressful thoughts. Rather than shooing away the wolves, feed them cookies. I want to remind people that you're listening to Accentuate the Positive Media, Awakening Consciousness with Karen Swain, on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3. We're streaming across the internet on 8 different platforms. We're on Rumble and we're not on X. X has decided they didn't want us. They've bumped us off a couple of times now. I don't know what's happening there. Facebook, YouTube. And my guest today is one of Australia's leading meditation teachers, Tom Cronin. You were talking about the witness before, finding the witness. I remember when I was really young, I was probably about 16, 17, maybe 18. Anyway, young. And I had broken up with a boyfriend, and I was in deep despair, feeling like life wasn't worth living and I wasn't worthy, going through all those things and crying. And I had this experience of me watching me like I was watching a movie, and sort of enjoying the show. Enjoying the show. It was the weirdest experience. I didn't understand it at the time. But yeah, that deep despair sort of split me into that two components of my consciousness, the witness and the one in the drama. So that's what you're talking about, the witness.
Yeah, it's the analogy I like to use is if there's an actor playing a character, let's just say Russell Crowe's playing Gladiator, which was a great film, and he's got his Roman outfit on, and he's wherever he was wearing, and he's playing this role in a movie. And at sometimes he actually, particularly if it's a method actor like Joaquin Phoenix, people like that kind of lose themselves in the role and they actually become the character. And that's kind of like what it's like. We can either be aware that we're playing a role. Oh, I'm playing Tom as the character in the Matrix, but I'm also witnessing from consciousness playing Tom. Or sometimes we can completely infuse the two and just lose ourselves in the character. And I think that's what it's like. Yeah,
absolutely. And Kosan, tell us if we're pronouncing your name right. Kosan has another question. Kasan? Anyway, sorry for the 20 questions, but separating from pain and stop resistance is not the case, is it? There's only pain, there's only resistance, is it not? There's already no ego. I don't really understand your question. Do you understand the question, Tom?
Yeah, I'll give it a go. And, I love the depth that Kusun is thinking at. And the pain is part of the process. It's an integral part of the process. It's a mechanism for guidance. And he's right that the pain is experienced in the body of the ego. So if we explore divinity, one would say that divine doesn't experience the pain. It's beyond the field of that form. Pain is a form. It's a sensation that is experienced in the physiology. And the physiology is required for pain, and the response and the duality of ego relationship to circumstance will be the catalyst for pain. But the field of the divine, some would call it God or source, itself is beyond that level of density. It's so subtle that it's not in the field that has the capacity to experience pain. And that would be beyond ego as well, because that's a construct that is in a denseness that pain has the potential to exist, as so too does the laughter and the shame and the guilt and all those other human experiences that we experience in that particular form and construct. But beyond ego and the construct of the forms, at the subtlest aspect of all reality, it's so subtle that the denseness of pain doesn't exist, can't exist. So that would be my response, and I don't know if I've answered his question, but that's what came through for me.
Yeah. So what you're saying is pain is an indication that there's distortion in the field, that there's something out of balance. So pain is valuable in pointing to a place we need to give attention to. And then when we give it that attention, then the pain ceases to exist. Then
I find, it's a communication system. I find a lot of us think of it as some source of, we're bad, or, we're no good, we're unworthy. And of course, this is happening to me. But if we can start to see the process and trust the process and identify the process and realize that we are in a field of maternal lovingness. And the analogy I like to use is that the maternal loving mother may have to at times scold the child because it is doing something that is not on a relevant trajectory of life, whether it's drinking too much or putting a knife in an electric power socket or, playing with a spider. The mother may have to because of love, instill some degree of discipline. And if there's some ignoring from the child, then the wrath of that mother might be a little bit more forceful and a little bit more painful. But it's always coming from love, and the universe is always coming from love, and it's always coming from gentle guidance. Sometimes it requires a little bit more force. So whenever there's turmoil, conflict, pain, suffering, it's usually some ignorance and resistance, as Kasun would say, to the process, and a lack of trust in the process, and a lack of adaptability in the process as well. So if you think about that child, that if the child adapts the first time it gets the message, okay, Mum, I get what you're saying. I totally hear you. And I will change what I'm doing. Then the wrath doesn't come. It's avoided the wrath. But if the child is very defiant and says, well, screw you, I'm going to do what I want. I haven't fulfilled my desires, my lust and my greed, or whatever it is that it's looking to extract out of life, then the wrath has to increase and increase and increase until eventually we get the message.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think the pain starts as negative emotion, and if we ignore it, the negative emotion gets louder and louder and louder, and we can ignore it, take some drugs, drink some, watch television, whatever, just ignore it. And then when you're ignoring the messages, it turns into some sort of diagnosis. It's now pain in your body, and then that pain in your body, you can ignore that, turns into some diagnosis from the doctor, and now you're not ignoring it. Now you've been diagnosed with some terrible disease, and you reach out to learn meditation. I know, being human.
Mother Divine made my life hell for 10 years, but that's only because I was so damn stubborn.
Right.
And I just wasn't listening. And thank goodness Mother Divine never gave up on me, and it never will. It will continue to communicate its guidance. And it's just a matter of how long and how much suffering can we put up with before we tune into it.
Right. Yeah. How much suffering can you put up with? Absolutely. Kasun, thanks so much. What's he saying here? I love your questions. Thanks so much. Ego is like a mirage or a rainbow. You see it, but if you go there to touch, it's not there. Yeah. Years ago, my daughter was in some emotional turmoil, probably over a guy, and nothing Mum could say was making any difference. And I kept racking my brain thinking, how can I help her? How can I help her? She's not really listening to what I've got to say. Who can I send her to? Having, showcased so many spiritual teachers and gurus over the years. And I thought about Tom because, as much as I wanted to send her to a healer to help her, with her pain, I also wanted her to learn how to do it herself. So I naturally chose Tom because he's going to teach her how to meditate. He's going to teach her how to go within and find her own answers within. I think that's what meditation does, right, Tom? Mm-hmm. You find the healer within or the counsel within rather than listening to the guru. So I didn't want her to have a guru that she would hang on to his every word. You need to fix me. You need to heal. I wanted her to find that healer within, but she still refers to you as my guru. Tom is my guru. And she's going to come online. Shall I bring her up? Because she's been doing your courses now for how many years? She does your
a few years now.
A few years. So I thought I would invite my daughter Annika to come on and just share some of her. I'm going to get all teary and to share some of her experiences with you. Welcome, Annika.
Hi. You can't get teary because then I'll get teary.
This is the first time. I was telling Tom before we went live that I've asked Annika to come on my show so many times, but she gets so shy that she's never come on my show. So I said I can ask her to come on, but she probably won't come on. So she's proved me wrong. She's proved me completely wrong. Yes, she loves proving Mum wrong. And she said, yeah, I'll come on and share my experiences with Tom. So bye-bye. Here she is in the beautiful Mullumbimby. Look, she's got the sun shining behind her. What have you found? What's been your experiences learning meditation through Tom?
I think exactly what you said before is taking the power back within yourself and not feeling like you need to put it in something exterior of yourself. I think that's what so many people are always searching for, the next big thing, the next plant medicine, breath work, whatever it is, there's always some next big thing that's going to heal me. And something that's really beautiful about meditation is that you're taking that power back and putting it in yourself. And when you're having those really difficult moments, whether it's in the middle of the night or the middle of the day, you just always have this access to something greater than yourself, to some place of calm within the storm. And that tool has been the most revolutionary tool I think I found throughout my many years.
Your many years
Yeah.
learning from Tom. So recently you had a retreat. Where did you have the retreat, Tom, that Annika went to? Where was that?
Yeah, we're up in Kingscliff, just north of Byron, and it was a beautiful location, and we had a nice big group. We've got another one happening in April next year as well, and one in Bali in just a few months. So we take them deep into a sort of an integrated process that incorporates some breath work, some yoga and meditation, and those that component of those combined together works on the physiological, emotional, mental, and spiritual levels. We're covering all bases there. So acknowledging and recognizing all those traditions and modalities play an integral part together.
Yeah, fantastic. Sounds amazing. Go to Bali and experience the beauty of Bali and learn how to find the wisdom within, find the answers within. But what I was really amazed, because so I'm somebody who teaches people how to be psychic. And I have to say that when I'm working with clients who have been, because you were on Lee Chandler's show, you know, I worked with Lee and took him into his past lives and introduced him to his spirit guides. And oh God, we had a fabulous time. But he did it so quickly. But he has been a seasoned meditator. He's been meditating his whole life. And so if you do start with meditation, that sort of thing becomes really easy. So Annika's been doing it for a while. And you had some really amazing experiences at Tom's last retreat. Do you want to share with people what you experienced during your meditation?
It was actually the very last meditation of the very last day of the retreat, which I thought was very profound, because every single time you meditate, it's completely different. You can't kind of set up this progressive game of the next meditation is going to be better because the last time I've been meditating for years and years, they're always different. So that's the exciting part, I guess. But the very, very last meditation, I think I just lost all expectations for something profound to happen. And then something profound happened. I had an overwhelming connection to my stepmother, who has since passed in her physical form. But she came and visited me during this last meditation with all sensory explosions of her presence were completely enveloping me. I could smell her. I could feel her hands on my shoulders. I could see her kind of light, if that makes any sense. And I could hear her voice inside my head as if she was speaking to me through me. And the things that she said to me, you're going to make me cry. The things that she said to me were so profound and comforting that it just made me feel like everything was okay again. I don't even think I can remember exactly what she said. I think I wrote it down, but it was something along the lines of like, everything happens for a reason. Can't you see the pattern of your life, that every time something really dramatic is happening, something really traumatic has happened, which I've had a few near-death experiences and a few different things have happened in my life that have changed the trajectory of my life. She said, each time something like that has happened, it's set you up for something beautiful in the future. But of course, you can't see it at the time because as humans, we're so completely enveloped by the chaos of what's happening in our current world that you can't see the bigger picture. And basically the message she said to me was, sometimes you just have to sit back and look at the bigger picture and realize that it's all happening for you and not to you. And it was just the words and the way she said it to me it was just like a warm hug. It was just so comforting to feel connection to another world and another realization that, yeah, everything is perfect, if that makes sense. I don't know, but it was beautiful. And I was weeping through my meditation, which I felt really embarrassed about, but everyone beside me, the irony being I was sitting in the middle of all of these mummies. There were all of these beautiful mothers sitting around me. And when I came up from the meditation, they all came and hugged me. And I was like, I'm being hugged by mothers in the real world and the spirit world. And it's everything that I wanted from this retreat was just to to feel nurtured and cared for and supported. And yeah, it was a very profound moment. That very last meditation, it was like everything kind of tied together and left me feeling like I could carry that message with me as I left. I think that's always a scary thing with meditation retreats, is it can be such a profound experience within the retreat, but then it's quite scary to leave and go into the big, really scary world again and be overstimulated again. But to have that message of it's all happening for a reason. It's all happening for you. You just have to find the threads through whatever's happening and seek the divinity in
everything.
In everything. Yeah. And yeah, it's always a beautiful thing. Every time I do a retreat or a meditation course, or it just reminds me, and I think it's a constant game of forgetting on a daily basis and needing to find reminding. That is the most profound part of Tom's teachings that I regularly feel grateful for, and sometimes need to just check in again because you forget over time. You get overstimulated with daily life and you just need to be reminded again. And it's a beautiful thing. And I'm very grateful to you. And I talk about you to my friends all the time. And some of them are really interested and some of them are like, oh no, that's woo-woo. And I'm like, it's not woo-woo. It's great. It's just presence. It's just stillness. It's something we all have the ability to access. But I think most people don't think that they can, and it's just having that support and training to find it that really makes the difference. Yeah.
Tom, what do you want to say to that?
It's just so well said, Annika. And I was chatting with your mum prior to this, and you've had many offers and invites to share your story and your wisdom with the world. And I think she said that there's a degree of shyness from you about getting yourself out to the world. But what I've just witnessed is this eloquence and composure that I think it's a clear indication it's time you shared yourself out to the masses in a bigger way, Annika. So you just got yourself in a bit of trouble now, because it's time to start answering those invitations to podcasts. And those experiences that you've been through have partly been for yourself, to realize, to realize truth, to discover the fundamental aspect of life. But it's also part of the refinement and preparing process for you to become a sharer of what you've found out into the world. And it's normally a 3-step process. We're a seeker, and in the seeking, if we think of what happens when we go into a dark room, we fumble around for the light switch. And in seeking, we generally find, and some people will find through plant medicine, they'll find through yoga, through healing, through psychic capabilities, through meditation. But after we've found, what tends to happen by default is we move into the 3rd stage of the process, which is sharer. And that's obviously the stage that I'm in now. And we're always kind of still a little bit in the finding process, because I'm always researching and exploring and being mentored, and I'm always a student. But there is a transitional point that I think you're entering into as well, which is becoming the sharer. And you've had enough finding in your journey, enough to qualify you as the sharer now. So what we say in Australia, tough shit, you're going to have to start sharing.
Oh, remember, we're not allowed to swear on live.
Oh, sorry.
Oops. I'm sure YouTube won't take us down for an S word. We were talking before about, thank you, Baba. Thanks for sharing your story with me and having the guts to come on, about that shyness, about that feeling like, I've had this conversation with Annika many times, and it's something I talk with my clients about who do have abilities and insights that they want to share with the world, but they're so scared about putting their face on camera or coming on a podcast show or being seen. What will you think of me? What will people think of me? Will I look like an idiot? Will I make a fool of myself? All these thoughts and ideas that we have about being seen, the fear of public speaking. Don't they say that it's like one of the biggest fears in the world? Do you want to address that, Tom? Why are people so scared of public speaking?
We're not scared of public speaking. Here's the interesting thing. I had this discussion with my daughter the other day, who had some opportunities to speak. And what we're afraid of is not the public speaking. We're not afraid of a podcast. We're not afraid of being on stage. We're actually afraid of being judged. And the thing with the ego, one of the characteristics or the core tenets of the ego is it's afraid of being seen and judged, because the ego doesn't really know who it is. The ego only determines its identity based upon the feedback system, which is what people say about it. If someone says you're no good, then you think you're no good. If someone says you're amazing, you think you're amazing. And so the ego is in this constant flux and confusion of receiving and needing information to determine who it is. Yeah. Whereas consciousness itself doesn't need that feedback. Consciousness just is. And when we're afraid of being seen, we can say, oh, that's the ego that's afraid of being seen. Conscious awareness itself is completely unbiased and unopinionated and unruffled and uninfluenced by what it's doing. It's just expressing the need of the time. And so full potential finds itself through the clearing of the filtering and the resistance and the impediment of the ego construct. We find, let's just write that book. Let's just be in that podcast, because we're not making it about ourselves. The ego makes it always about itself. I'm afraid of being seen. But consciousness says this needs to be delivered to humanity. And this is a medium, whether it's a stage or a podcast or a book or a film or a weekend workshop. And we almost with reckless abandon share the knowledge that's coming through, because it's going to a particular need at the time. So we make it more about the receiver of the information rather than the deliverer of the information.
Yes, exactly. It's about service. It's about being in service. Yeah, not in service to what will you think about me, but I hope that what I can offer you helps you in your life. Like I'm giving you this gift of my experience. And yeah, I'm in service. I'm in service to your transformation. I'm in service to humanity. That's why I'm doing these podcasts for so many years. It's all about the service.
Yeah, I like to take it even another level to that. And I was really inspired by my auntie, who I did a post about not long ago. And she's a beautiful 79-year-old Loretta nun that is working in in Albania to prevent human trafficking. And she's a little powerhouse, and she's been acknowledged in person by the Pope and also by the UN for the work that she's doing for humanity. But she's the most enlightened and loving and gentle human being you've ever come across. And we were chatting recently. She was out here in Australia, and we had a beautiful time with her. We were chatting about her practice, her prayer, and life itself. And she helped me to appreciate and understand, because of the way she does things, is to surrender really anything to do with herself. She just becomes really the custodian for love. She says God is omnipresent and God is love, which means that love is omnipresent, which means that I am love. And I just have to get out of the way and let love speak through me. And so I'm speaking for love and I'm speaking from love. And that there's no me anymore. There's just love being expressed through my actions, my words, and my thoughts. And so this was this really beautiful, I guess, a new way of seeing the surrender of ego into just being no longer the I, but the custodian of love and God, and being of service for that.
Oh, that's it, Tom. That's all we needed to say. I mean, honestly, that message alone is like everything you need to say ever. Yeah, I'm in service to love. I am love. I come from love. I express as love. I'm in service to love. Yeah. Oh my God, that was so beautiful. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I hope that all sinks in. But, the thing is that
so now we're going to see Annika on stages now everywhere. It's going to be amazing.
We're going to see. I'm going to get her on. She wants to be on Expanding Reality podcast. Brandon wants you on there sharing your experience. But what was I going to say? I also wanted to say, that I remember what Elise is Annika's dead stepmother that came to her in the meditation. She said something to you, might have forgotten. So Annika was bitten by a shark. How many years ago, Bob? 4 years ago? 5 years ago? 4 years ago? 4 years ago. And so she's in the water, flailing around, blood everywhere, and starting to pass out. And Elise said to you from Spirit that she's one of your spirit guides and that she helped save you. Do you remember that in the meditation? Oh, okay, I won't talk about that. make you cry, but that was pretty.
She said,
that was
"You're
a bit
not
of
done. You're not done." She said
Yeah.
this. She said, "Keep swimming," and I was like, "No, I'm tired. I'm ready to sink. I've had a good adventurous life. I'm happy to fall asleep now." She said, "No, you're not done. This is just the beginning. You gotta keep swimming. You gotta keep swimming. Get back to land and tell everyone this story." I was like, "What? What's going on?"
Yeah. Something else I thought was really interesting when she rang me and told me about, Shirley says beautiful. Hi, Shirley. She's telling me about this extraordinary conversation with Elise in Spirit in your meditation retreat. I thought to myself, I was telling some friends about what she had said about life is happening for you, not to you, and the challenges are there to help us grow spiritually and all this sort of stuff. And everyone's going, that's what you tell all of us. That's what you've been telling people. I said, sometimes you need to hear that message inside yourself rather than coming from your mother or your guru or a podcast show. Maybe it really sinks in when you're hearing it within. And that's what meditation gives you, that access to that wisdom so that you can really hear it. What do you want to say about that, Tom? Keep swimming, Shirley says.
Yeah, meditation is just a tool to help us get to what already exists. And it can come to us in so many different ways and shapes and forms. I don't want to sort of push it too much to be this sort of cure-all, because what it is just a portal. That's why we call the film The Portal. It's a portal. There's many different portals, and near-death experience is a portal as well. You reminded me of a man that I don't remember his name actually, and I'm sure you could Google him, but he jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge in a time of very dark bleakness and losing all will to continue on with life. And it's very rare that this would happen, but he jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, which is a very common point for suicide, and he survived the fall, which is very unlikely and very unusual. And he then had this divine sort of awakening after coming back and, being saved and coming back to life. And he now travels the world. He's written books. I think they made a movie about him, and he is a prolific speaker on the purpose of life and the insights that he's had and helping people get through those difficult times. And so even when we're in dark times, they're actually relevant. They're part of our journey. My bleakest times have become the thing that most people want to know about when I'm on a podcast interview. So the story is, the story is part of the process and part of your journey for relevance. And what we tend to lack in those bleak times is the appreciation and the realization of our relevance. And Annika's time now, after being told by her auntie stepmom rightfully so, was to swim, keep swimming, because the relevance of that story and that journey is going to help many, many people's lives to find some point of significance and relevance in their life as well.
Yeah, beautiful. So do you want to share with people about the portal? Like, you made a documentary about this, hoping to inspire 1 billion people. I think it's a great way to inspire 1 billion people, make some movies, as well as go on podcast shows. What's the portal all about?
Yeah, we wanted to showcase the power of meditation through two mediums, film and book. And rather than having some researchers in white lab coats talking about the science of meditation, we decided to tell it through story. And we find that storytelling, which is an ancient tribal process and practice, is such a powerful tool for sharing knowledge. And so we found 6 stories after interviewing hundreds of people around the world that we needed a couple of components in their story. One, we needed them to have a crisis of some sort, and they used meditation as a tool to help them get through that crisis and liberate themselves from the constraints that crisis was having on them and their life. And so the 2 components were crisis and meditation, those 2 coming together. So we found 6 amazing stories that were very diverse. And we also, the 3rd component to their story was we wanted their story to have a global theme that speaks to humanity's collective crisis or crises. And so we were looking for themes of conflict and war, themes of AI and the technological challenges, the challenges of human displacement, of personal abuse and social conflict. So all these sorts of stories we're looking for as global themes in their own individual stories. We've got a rabbi that had locked-in syndrome, a stroke that locked his whole body. So he'd lost the use of his whole body, but still found through meditation blissful enlightenment. We found an American war veteran that was experiencing huge levels of trauma and PTSD and found liberation from the scar and the wound of the war to find inner peace. One woman that worked in the UN that was deeply wounded and scarred through her time working in war-ravaged countries, a Vietnamese refugee. So lots of different stories that had liberated themselves from the story, knowing that they're not the story. The story is part of this colorful journey to awakening and to realization that led them to meditation, that freed them from the story. So yeah, that's the portal, and you can find that on our website, entertheportal.com, where we're giving that as a gift to the world now. Of course, if Netflix came along and said, we'd like to buy that off you and put that on our platform, then open up your checkbook and show us the money, Netflix. But at the moment, we're just gifting that to the world as something that we felt was a nice piece of service, and they can buy the book on the website as well.
Yeah, you turned the DVD, the movie, into a book. Yeah,
that's
so
right.
it's the portal book.
Yeah, we
So do you think
extracted the book from the film.
Extracted the book from the film, right? Which is what
Karen?
Secret did. That's what The Secret did as well. That's what Rhonda Byrne did with The Secret. She made The Secret and then turned it into a book. So do you think you'll make some more documentaries? I mean, how was the documentary experience? It's always very expensive to make documentaries or movies. Will you make some more, Tom?
Oh, it's a big question, Karen. I'm still, speaking of ego, wounded from that journey. It was a very challenging financially, energetically process.
Right.
It was much harder than I thought, and we had many, many difficult times in that process. So it was quite ironic that a film about meditation and inner peace was anything but that in the process, which was probably why we're in the process. It's like, if you want to live and breathe it, then we're going to test you on it. So I'm still recovering from that process, particularly financially. It's been a very difficult one in that space. So unless there's a very enticing offer to make another documentary or film at this stage, I feel my best work is not in filmmaking, because it's very logistical and very time consuming. I'm much better at teaching people to meditate and running retreats and mentoring people than actually making films.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, we were talking about Bill Bennett before, who was a ABC reporter, and he had an experience when he was racing to catch a plane at 5 o'clock in the morning many years ago, when he was reporting in Paris, and he had this voice in his head that said, slow down. And he thought to himself, no, I'm running late, I'll miss my plane, I need to speed up. And the voice got louder and it said, slow down. And he slammed on the brakes, and this big truck went and ran through the intersection, and had he not slowed down, it would have taken him out. And so it took him about 20 years to explore what that voice was. But basically, when he retired, he started making documentaries, PGS, Intuition as Your Personal Guidance System being the one of them. Yeah, and so he manages to do it. Have you ever spoken to Bill about making documentaries?
Yeah, many times. We became really good friends as we brainstormed our own struggles and challenges. And it just reaffirmed everything that I knew, which is making documentaries is not easy, and certainly selling documentaries is even harder now. So to fund a documentary it takes a lot, but to recoup from a documentary is extremely difficult these days.
Yeah, Diane's saying, lovely to see your daughter on the show. Hi, wave to everyone. Hi. Because I've got a group that I speak endlessly about. Annika never watches my shows, and I talk about her all the time, so people know that I've got to do it who I talk about. So here she is in the flesh. Well, we've got about 10 minutes to go for the show. Thank you, Bob, for sharing your experiences. Anything else you'd like to say to Tom, and I'll kick you off and end it with Tom.
Just thank you. And I agree with the documentary making. I was just laughing because I'm going through the same thing, making my own documentary about my healing journey. And I've called Tom as a mentor to talk about it, like speaking about how freediving has been my therapy and how I want to inspire people. But the process of making the documentary is not the therapy. But you're doing it for the people.
Yeah.
It's funny.
It's a
But,
selfless process.
Yeah, it's a selfless process. That's exactly right. So
Well,
yeah, it's good to be reminded.
Putting it to the test, putting yourself in stressful situations and finding that peace within the stressful situation. Hey, make a documentary.
Yeah, absolutely. Swim
before
with
you go,
sharks,
Bob-
but look really peaceful while you're doing it so that you can prove that you're doing the thing you're talking about.
Exactly. Hold your breath for 3 minutes underwater, under tons of water. That's a way to put yourself in a stressful situation and then find the peace. Yeah, free diving. Free diving freaks me
But make
out,
it look
seriously.
peaceful.
But make it look
It's
peaceful.
beautiful, Mum. You got to try it.
Free diving freaks me out. Yeah, the holding your breath underwater, and then like you can't go anywhere. The only place you can go is in your mind. And so when you're panicking and you can't breathe and you can't take a breath because you're under tons of water, you have to find that peace so that you can get back up to the surface. Like that just freaks me out. But that's the ultimate test of finding peace in stressful situations, isn't it?
It's meditation in motion. That's why it's so profoundly powerful. You're proving that the ability to conquer mind over matter actually has a real, tangible experience that you can use on a daily basis as well. It's anxiety tolerance. It's discomfort tolerance.
But here's the question. So when you put yourself in those extreme stressful situations and then you can find the peace, what about that situation where somebody says something nasty about you and you're going into ego and somebody ignores you, or a person that you like doesn't return your phone call, those situations? What about finding the stress in those situations? I'm going to let Tom answer that one. Where you feel judged, or like you're not in an extreme situation. Someone's cut you off in traffic. Someone's rude to you at the cafe. Tom, what do you want to say about that?
It's a conditioned and trained response that we have, and that's trainable and conditionable to change it as well. So every every TV show, every movie has embedded within it the reaction response, where you make me feel this way. So we get coded in our society with an inherent belief system that we should react to those situations according to how charged that situation is. And if someone's angry, then they're sharing that energy of anger, and then we get angry and we share that energy of anger with them, and then this escalates, and we see this on a global level and an individual level. But it doesn't have to be that way, and that comes down to breaking the code, breaking the pattern, and retraining ourselves to be observant from Sakshi Kutasta, the silent witness, and goes, I see this for what it is. I see you as loving being, loving consciousness, yet realized, but your state doesn't necessarily have to affect my state. I see your frustration, I see your anger, I see your sadness, but that doesn't necessarily mean I need to be infused or activated with that either. And learning to be more sovereign over time takes diligence and discipline and practice, but not many of us are willing to put the effort in and to train ourselves or retrain ourselves. We're just easily influenced and easily trained and easily conditioned by circumstances and situations in society. But that is all changeable for sure. It just takes time.
Yeah, I love what you said. That's something that I think about often, that we're trained to be in that response. Like I've got friends that work on, Home and Away and Neighbours and all those shows. Every show on television and in the movies is like somebody hurts you and then you respond with revenge or hatred. It's like it's this constant conditioning that this is how you respond when this happens, and when you get hurt and someone does something terrible to you, you hate them. You got to get revenge. It's like Hollywood's made millions out of that revenge theme. Yeah. So how do we get ourselves out of the matrix and into peace, love, and kindness? Yeah. Meditation. Everybody. Meditation. The final plug. Before we go, Bub, do you want to tell people about your documentary that you're in, Extreme Minds?
Oh, that one. Yeah, I was talking about my personal one with Francie, but that one is also
We haven't done that one yet.
That one's not. Yeah, well, Extreme Minds isn't out yet, but it will be. And since we made the documentary, we've actually began filming the television series. So there will be a few things to look out for. You can find you can find the social media presence. There is an Instagram for Extreme Minds, and there is also a website, I believe, with some trailers that have been posted. And the concept is a beautiful concept. Excuse me. Sarah is an incredible young entrepreneur. She is got such an incredible mind. So she's created this project where she's wanting to show that through extreme sports, people have found extreme therapy within pushing themselves to the edge of discomfort, as well as honing in on bringing themselves into the zone, or bringing themselves into a focus that keeps you perfectly in the present moment, which you have to be in if you're engaging in extreme sports. So I'm representing the free diving sport, and within my story, I'm speaking about how within free diving, there is nowhere else you can be but in the present moment when you are underwater holding your breath, especially when you're surrounded by animals. You are completely hyper-focused and hyper-vigilant, but within that space, you also have to be very calm, because you cannot hold your breath if you are panicked. Every moment of anxiety and panic makes you run out of oxygen quicker. And thoughts even is an interesting one. If you think too much, you're using too much oxygen. So you have to be present and calm, as well as not overthinking, just I can't think of the right word for that, but enjoying the space, but as well as being observant of your surroundings. And I think for me, it's been a really beautiful thing. It's been a really beautiful therapy. But for a few other people in the film as well, they share their story, and there's highliners, there's a base jumper, there is big wave surfers. There's some incredible people sharing their stories of their sports and how they've found peace within the sport and what it's taught them on a daily basis, as well as the community. I think that's the other thing. You meet like-minded people when you do extreme things like this, because, what else are you going to meet when you find a group of people that willingly hold their breath and go under the ocean? You're bound to find some people that have some similar philosophies for life. And especially the lifestyle, I think that's a beautiful thing. You have to be healthy. There's a funny saying with scuba divers and free divers. I actually love both, but scuba diving is for looking out and free diving is for looking in. You have to be really in tune with your inner world and your inner dialogue, as well as your bodily responses. You have to trust your ability to understand what's happening within your body as well as your mind when you're underwater. And that's a really beautiful thing about being a free diving partaker, is that you're honing in on this skill of trusting your guidance and trusting your body to be your tank, because you don't have this scuba tank on the back of you that you're relying on. You're relying on your lungs, and you're relying on your ability to trust that your body can take you where you want to go, and trust that it can take you back to the surface as well. And that's what I love about the sport, and that's what I love about sharing things about the sport. And this film will hopefully come out either at the end of this year or next year. And then following that will be the TV series. And within the TV series, each person that featured in the film is teaching this sport to a lovely lady who's experiencing these sports for the first time. And we're sharing what we love about the sport and how it's therapeutic. And we share that with her and see if she gets a benefit from it, which I can tell you she does. So it's a beautiful thing to see. This exploration of wild worlds.
Wild worlds, extreme minds, beautiful. Anything else you'd like to share with us, Tom, before we go? We've got a couple of minutes. I want to say thank you so much. Thanks, Bob, for having the courage to come on camera, come on the live show with me. She did it, Tom. See, it's all your coaching. Anything else you want to share with us before we go?
Just that I think, just to let everyone know that, we have a very unstable world and a very uncertain world, and we're going through a big transition. And transitions are always difficult. When we're moving from one house to another house, the transition's difficult. From one yoga pose to another yoga pose, the transition's difficult. From one relationship to another relationship, always transitions are difficult. And we're going through a transition of what the old world was into what a new world will be. And that can be unstable. Like in the middle of a renovation, you have a house that's very livable and a very livable house after the renovation, but in the renovation, it's very unlivable. So Just acknowledge that we're in transition, and that's okay. And this get clear on what you want the new world to look like for your new world inside you and your new world outside of you. We need to have a world that is starting to explore the beauty of what an enlightened planet will look like. And we don't currently have a clear roadmap. We don't currently have an organization that's in charge of mapping and designing an enlightened planet. But if each and every one of us inside of ourselves start to consider, what do I look like in an enlightened state, and what does the world look like as an enlightened planet, then it gives us a North Star and a roadmap of how to get there and what it looks like when we do get there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We've got to go. We've run out of time. Big love to all of you. Thanks for everybody tuning in. Catch you next time. Bye for now.